television, where we believe in driving business, making sure that you navigate those business potholes and ensure that you reach your destination safely, securely, to ensure that your business does not suffer in any way. And of course, this is Business Insight as part of SMB. Smart means business for breakfast here on Smart 24. I just want to say a special thank you to all those who've made it possible for us to be in studios this morning, and most importantly for you, our viewers, who are watching us this morning. A special mention for those of you who are watching us from Central African Republic. We know that you're watching us live. From those who are watching us in Djibouti as well, you're welcome to watch Smart 24. A special mention also of those who are watching us in Zambia, in Lusaka, and of course in Lesotho and in Eswatini, in Swaziland now. You're most welcome, and a good morning to you. My name is Jane Kasumba, and I'm the talk show host for Business Insight here on Smart 24 Television. In studio with me is Godwin Batuma. Godwin is also one of our key hosts here on The Breakfast on Smart Means Business, and we're going to be discussing at length the policies, the political policies that affect business. And if you're perhaps a business leader this morning or a political leader, this is indeed the show for you. We'll be joined within this show by two politicians, Magdala Cooper, Her Excellency Magdala Cooper, who's currently running for the presidency in Liberia, and also Honorable Miriam Matembe. They'll be telling us and talking to us about politics and business and how they are navigating those rather difficult waters. Godwin, if I can bring you in here, politics vis-a-vis business. The two are intertwined and cannot be separated.
It is. It's a very interesting conversation, Jane, that we've been having from 7 on till now, especially regarding the intersectionality of business and policy and how that affects the business owner. And is it something that is needed? Does it affect us in a positive way? And how can we both have that synergy to make sure that business is bolstered in a very positive way? As we've seen, there are many policies, especially since back in the day, that are affecting business owners. Yeah. Some of the biggest policies we look at is the Investment Act of 2019. Yeah. This act provides a number of incentives to foreign and domestic investors, including tax breaks. We're looking at duty-free imports and access to land, which is quite important. I was talking to Andrew Barija earlier on about the SMCs and having gone to the trade show early October this month and looking at all the young startups in Uganda.
By the way, as a continental channel, let me just make it a point to note that you're talking about the Uganda Investment Authority Act in Uganda.
Yes, this is a Uganda Investment Act of 2019 in Uganda, since we're speaking directly from Uganda, right? Yeah. So we're seeing that a lot of these policies affect the young business owners in certain ways, right? So a lot of these people don't understand how to advocate for themselves, how they're able to engage with these policymakers to make sure that they are having a better way to do business in this country. So when I looked at when I was at the trade fair, the Uganda Trade Fair, International Trade Fair, where a lot of the businesses converged, we were able to see young SMEs, young business owners. You could see them thriving. There's so many people that are growing in this sector, and the government was able to come. I think some of the government leaders were able to show up at the Uganda Trade Fair show and really talk about how to invest and fund these young startups that have no access, especially to traditional banking systems and traditional sources of funding.
Okay, let me just list down political factors affecting business this morning for not just those in Uganda, but for all of you all across the continent. The first one is bureaucracy. And I think the red tape, what they call the red tape, and I know, Godwin, you must know a bit about this. Yes. The issue of you start something and it takes you almost 20 years to get it done. And you know what they say in business, time is money. So if you're starting something, if you want to open a company and it takes you almost 2 weeks, that's not business. And that's why I think in Rwanda it takes almost just a day or half a day to open a business. Tell us about bureaucracy, the effects of bureaucracy on business.
I mean, just the idea that before getting your passport or national ID takes that much longer, especially I'm speaking from this country, right? It has traditionally taken us a longer time to be able to get the basics that we need to start your national ID. They're telling you come back in 3 weeks, come back in a month or so. This stifles business. I mean, just recently we're looking at we're moving into a space where there's AI systems, where we're starting to pay everything cashless, right? So a lot of these businesses need cashless systems like Momo Pay, Airtel Pay, but now you find that MTN itself is asking for all these particulars that you need for business to be able to operate on the Momo Pay card. Like you need your statement of particulars, you need your trading license, your TIN certificate, you need your URSB certificate. All these are important documentation that is needed, right? This is policy by Ugandan government to make sure that you need all this documentation. But you find that a lot of businesses in Uganda, Jane, you'll be very surprised, are lacking in documentation. And what's the reason? What's the reason? Is the bureaucracy. It's that bureaucracy, because they're thinking, why on earth am I going to honestly go through the whole process of trying to get this document so I can just have Momo Pay? It's too much work, it's laborious, it takes a lot of time, and quite frankly, I could have been doing business this whole time whilst I'm waiting on one particular document to operate. So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, the issue of red tape. So that is the first one. One of the major major political factors that we have identified slows down businesses and affects businesses here in Uganda and on the continent as a whole. The next one is corruption levels.
Yes.
The fact that perhaps you want to open your business, you have to go somewhere, you have to tip so-and-so, you have to tip so-and-so. How can we get away from this?
And it's interesting, we talked about the intersectionality, of course, with the government, the policies, and the very people, right? You're talking about corruption. We find that a lot of what we're struggling with is the favoritism, nepotism. There's a tribalism that we struggle with as well as a country, and many governments around the world, I'm pretty sure. Because of that nepotism, you find that if I know somebody within that government, I'm able to pay a little bit to have this license given.
But someone who's watching might say, no, Godwin, perhaps that's my network. Perhaps that's how I move.
That's how you operate, yes.
Perhaps that's how I operate. How do you divorce networking vis-a-vis nepotism?
I mean, it's an interesting one. Those guys might say it's how I network, but as a country as a whole, because it's not the problem of the business owner. The business owner is doing his best to make sure he does what he has to do to be able to fund these political leaders' campaigns, to be able to get a little leg up. But what about these other businesses that aren't able to afford that kind of leg up? They're starting out. I'm very privy to young startup businesses, because I'm thinking these people need a lot of funding, but the playing field is not even.
No,
right?
it's not.
There's no even playing field. So these other people are struggling to sort of come up and compete with these other big dogs that have a little bit of that leg end, a little bit of the money. It's hard to create a level playing field for every other competitor. It only focuses on just a few. And we find that there's lack of checks and balances because of that, right? Because someone can easily get a leg on. There's not enough checking to make sure everything is up to snuff. You find that the buildings just come up without proper inspection. You know, those things that happen because of that corruption that we're having in the country. It's a big, big problem, and it's something we need to look. Of course, we have the anti-corruption board, but we also need to have them completely having checks and balances within their body as well.
Okay, that's a great one, Godwin. Let me bring in another political factor that affects business: tax policies.
Right.
And the challenges that businesses have with tax. And many times, people don't want to say it, but a lot of people are ignorant. A lot of business owners are ignorant when it comes to tax compliance.
Right.
What they should pay tax for, what they shouldn't pay tax for, what incentives they have, what incentives they don't have. They just don't know. And when you don't know, you know what they say in law, ignorance is no defense. But when you just don't know, you spend your time. Not only is time spent, you also spend money as well. Now that's one of the factors, one of the political factors that we found affects businesses. Your take on tax policies here in Uganda and vis-a-vis across Africa?
Absolutely, and I'm very privy to the young people who don't have a lot of skin in the game. They come in and they're forced to pay these incredibly high taxes, right? And they're thinking, I can't afford to pay this much tax. But you also talked about ignorance. They might not know why they're paying the taxes for, because they're not seeing the impact of paying their taxes on the country itself. So they're thinking, why should I pay taxes? We have a lot of people evading tax. Right, and that affects the government as a whole, because there's a lot of tax evasion. There's people who don't have, because I was working in a business prior, and my job was to be able to make sure people were compliant to some of the things that they needed in terms of like your TIN certificate. Do you pay URSB fees? Do you have a URA TIN certificate in order? And you'll be surprised how many businesses in Uganda don't have a TIN certificate, or are reluctant to share it with you, because then you're going to look into their history. And I'm thinking, well, that's not my part. I'm not looking into your tax history. But even just that conversation, they're thinking, you're going to look into my tax history and I don't really pay taxes. One of the businesses was honest with me saying, Godwin, I don't pay taxes. I don't see the need to pay taxes in Uganda. I don't see the value in me paying taxes. They're just taking my money. I'm a small business. I'm not a big dog like a lot of those big dogs. Why should I be paying this much tax? So we find a lot of businesses do not apply for their TIN certificate. They're operating under false pretenses. And not that they don't want to, it's because they're thinking, if I am on the radar of the government and I grow bigger, I'm going to be taken for everything I own. There's that fear, there's that ignorance about what the benefit of tax is. So those tax policies, I think that an education and a census needs to be done. So we educate the people on the benefits of paying tax, as opposed to just, oh, let's pay tax, and help them understand why. There has to be a sensitization, an effective one, where they go to this local business and say, this is why your tax money is going, this is why your tax revenue is going, this is what we can do as a country to develop. So people are more inclined to want to pay those taxes, to want to apply for their TIN certificate and all.
And I think it's also important to note that the tax bodies and those in government and those who govern government policies must ensure that once taxes are paid, the dividends can be seen. Street lighting is on. I mean, the road network is worked on. Everything that touches on the supply chain of a business person, so that he also sees the benefit of where his taxes are going. And I think many times, I know, especially we've been seeing pictures, the pictures you've been seeing are of downtown Kampala in Uganda. I know many of those business people are like, we don't want to pay taxes because we don't have the basic amenities, or we don't see where our tax dollar or our tax shilling is going. So I think it's very important for government officials and those who govern policies per se to ensure that people are able to see the return on investment when they're paying their taxes. And that is downtown Kampala. Downtown Kampala, for those of you who've not been to Kampala, who've not been to Uganda, is a tax haven. It's a business haven.
It is a business haven. That's where we do our business, especially when I think
where we heavily trade.
When I think of business in Uganda, all I think about is downtown. I mean, we think, because that's the business capital of Uganda. That's the haven. Everyone is doing small businesses to big businesses, imported goods from China, whatever it is, small goods, feeding, foodstuffs, every single thing is found downtown. So when you look at the conditions within this, if you've just seen those pictures, they're looking at the conditions within which they have to operate, the poor infrastructure in some of these places. It affects the transportation of their goods to places, right? They have to pay a little bit extra. It affects them in a different way. Look at the staff. Look how staffed it is downtown, right? It's horrible communication. There's horrible transportation in these areas. They're thinking, I don't know what I'm paying for. And we're looking at some of the policies that the Ugandan government has put in place, especially for the SMEs. We look at micro, small and medium enterprise, right? Policies of 2015. The policy aims to promote the growth and development of SMEs in Uganda. It includes a number of measures to support SMEs, such as access to finance, training, and markets.
That's fantastic. You know, I think, like I said many times, we have, in Uganda, we're rich in policies. Our policies are some of the best in the world, and like the one that you've just read out on microfinancing. It's one of the best in the world. People are able to get opportunities therein, but the implementation is where there's always some form of a challenge.
It's where we struggle,
It's where we struggle. What else has government put in place?
Of course, we have another government policy that put in place, like Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, Boo. It's something I talk about all the time, right? For a person personally, I try my best. All my skin products are Ugandan made. I make my hair product is Ugandan.
So what is your skin product?
I use Movit. I use Movit Uganda.
Are you sure?
Uganda, yes, I use Movit for my hair, for my skin, and I made a conscious.
Is it a good product?
It is. I mean, I hope it works. It looks. But this is a conscious decision.
It's a conscious decision.
It's a conscious decision I had to make, because I can be telling people all day on air to go build Uganda by Uganda. But if I'm not doing it myself, I mean, charity has to begin at home.
It has to begin.
Because especially when I keep referring to the trade fair and how so many local businesses, we have people that have skincare products, hair care products, shampoos that are not being supported or funding because of the narrative around our products here in Uganda, right? We're not marketed enough, we're not pushed out enough, we're not given a proper platform to be able to say, guys, we're doing well. But of course, with the financing training that these SMCs provide, we're able to have these people promote themselves better, put more money into their product, put more money into their research, which is why funding is important. Training is important so they know how to scale their business, because a lot of these local businesses don't know how to scale. They don't understand financial management, right? They just come in with a good product and that's it. So a lot of that training is imperative.
Now, what else? Just give us one more policy that the government has put in place.
Yeah, so another
that is beneficial for businesses.
So another policy that Ugandan government has put in place is a national industrialization policy. So this policy aims to transform Uganda into a middle-income country through industrialization. It includes a number of measures to support the development of key industries such as manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism.
Okay.
And as we know, agriculture is one of our biggest, it's our bread and butter for Uganda, right? Tourism is something we're looking to, especially regarding the conversation about tourism. A person that just recently died at one of the parks, and the attack that happened in tourism and how that affects tourism as a whole for Uganda, right? We're seeing that a lot of these policies are here to sort of bolster the manufacturing industry, agriculture, and the tourism industry. It's one of the policies that they've put in place.
Okay, so that is very notable. I would just also like to state that political factors do indeed affect greatly, affect businesses greatly. And it's also important to note that tariffs affect businesses if not well worked out, as well as trade controls, as well as environmental pollution controls as well as also issues to do with government's involvement in trade unions and agreements and all matters like that. So what you're seeing right now is downtown Kampala, like I was saying, downtown Kampala this morning, a very busy business haven here in East Africa. And of course, those ladies and gentlemen who own those businesses are at times affected by political policies. So it's important for government and business owners to work together for a fruitful business environment. That's our discussion on Business Insight this morning. Our guest was supposed to be Her Excellency Magdala Cooper, presidential candidate for Liberia. Unfortunately, she's on a flight as we speak at this moment, but I think after the break, we'll be coming back with a slight documentary on her and how she, as a politician, has navigated and worked with business leaders to ensure that there is some form of progress in Liberia. We'll be right back. Godwin Batuma is still in studio with me. Have a good morning.